Well, in any week, there's a portion that's recovery, and then there's a portion where we reintroduce. We've seen Dallas before this year and watched plenty of them. The ideas they have and our ideas of how to break them down. That's all been accomplished. Physically, guys are in a good state. I think tactically, both teams know exactly what the other team is doing. In the end, at this stage of the season, it comes down to making good decision and making big plays in key moments of the game. And I'm sure our opponent will try to do the same. Um, and we were very happy with their performance last week. In those moments of the game, our guys showed up and had good performances and seemed to have learned the lessons in the weeks prior. And we're looking forward to another positive performance.
Steve, what's the most challenging thing about Dallas that you've seen when you face them, especially because of the play that they're doing as of late and the run?
Certainly, the three up top are quite dangerous. Very mobile, very dangerous. They have a clear way of playing, their ability to expose the space in behind, and they have some very good finishers. Most notably with Ferreira um, and Ariola, and then adding Leggett, as an eight is also another piece that gives them a little experience, and another passer to feed those players that I mentioned up top who make very good runs and are often dangerous and maybe more notably on the counterattack, which is something we're very aware of.
Looking at the depth, especially with the new players for the team, you can have two starting attacking tridents. It's just what's the challenge for you, and how do you see that playing out every day in training? Everybody trying to earn that spot and just allowing yourself to make those decisions.
We are not in a position to experiment at this stage in the season. So those players who start tomorrow, those are the ones who we believe will give us the best opportunity to win on that given day. All of the factors we have, or all the information we gather throughout the week, are factors leading into that decision, and obviously past performances. But we make these decisions prior to the game to the best of our ability. After games, we're all a bit smarter. Prior to the game, it's not as easy as that. And that is the process we go through week to week.
And then just lastly, seeing Cristian and the way he fits in, I was asking John about it, also having that football formation of being in Barcelona and Espanyol and that style of play. Same thing with Ilia. How does that fit into what LAFC is doing?
I think it shortens his integration process. We saw it very early in training. He understands how we play. We've showed him, obviously, with individual video session, what we expect of our wingers and all of our attackers, because we're quite fluid up top. Something the concepts he grasped very quickly because he's been doing it his entire career. And so the integration process with him has been very, very easy on the field. Now the immigration process is completed, and he can help us in game situations.
Steve, when you look at a game week like this where you have multiple games, like you said, you understand there's got to be some kind of rotation. But how do you balance that with, you go to Dallas and let's say you play really well and you don't really want to change it? How do you kind of balance those two things between knowing you got to move guys and some continuity on the pitch?
It's the information we're missing to answer that question. We'll get after the game, and so this stage in the season, and especially in short weeks like that, you really need to think game to game. This game can be very unpredictable, and for that reason, I can't answer your question. But we will know after the game tomorrow night how we'll approach Minnesota. We obviously have made some decisions or ideas ahead of time of how we'll approach Minnesota, but without that missing link of information, we can't make a final decision.
We will take questions from Zoom, starting with Kevin Baskin.
Hey, Steve. Thanks a lot again for your time. Congratulations on Cristian, and I know he's kind of the news of the day, but I had a sort of a follow-up question I had for John earlier. But with Gareth, he came here, I think, with two different goals. He wanted to help LAFC, but he also wanted to get fit for the World Cup. And I noticed you've only played him up to 60 minutes just one time. It feels like he's kind of on a pitch couch. How is that process going? And do you feel like, is it difficult for you to look at what you want to do with LAFC and then what Gareth's goals are personally, involving Cutter?
It's the goals of LAFC override everything. It's my job to win games for LAFC. I know that, John knows that, Gareth knows that, the team knows that, every single player on our roster knows that, and everybody, Gareth included, has done a fantastic job of performing when called upon. And that's how we'll continue moving forward.
Do you feel like he's getting closer and closer to being full match fit?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good luck in Dallas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll move on to Josh Gross.
Thanks. Steve, just a couple of quick ones. Are you guys staying on from Dallas and heading right to Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay. And has the heat wave here in Southern California throughout the state, has that influenced training at all? Have you had to do things differently?
Sure. I think the duration of each particular drill we do in sessions every day are shortened a bit, but not drastically. We haven't changed the way we want to work. That's also quite typical of most, I would say most coaches and most organizations. Towards the end of the season, you can only do too much, and so the duration is usually the first thing that gets cut. We can't reduce the intensity of training because of weather or stage of the season, but we can reduce the duration, and we've done that. But I still think if you ask the players how they felt after training, even though we reduced it due to the weather and due to the stage of the season, they still feel like they got enough in. So, we will always manage the players in a sense that they get enough to be ready for the weekend, so they are protected and they will not injure themselves by overloading. But they are also feel like they got enough so they're physically ready as well.
Okay, and last one for me, kind of a silly one. Ryan Hollingshead talked after the match against RSL about, the mustache and sort of the superstitiousness of it, and wanting this maybe like lobbying the squad to have playoff mustaches. Is that something that registers with you? Has he tried to convince you? Could you even grow one if he asked you to?
I do, and if you look hard enough on the internet, you will find myself with a mustache for different reasons. For Movember, for prostate cancer awareness for men. So I can grow one, but I will not grow one, and that does not register with me. I am a firm believer in hard work and not in superstitions.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Last question from Ryan Wallership.
Hi, Steve. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Congratulations on Cristian. But my question centers on him. You mentioned earlier that this is not a time in the season for experimentation, but also that obviously Dennis was able to get dropped in fairly quickly and get some game time. You mentioned that Cristian's background accelerates his process. Can you just talk about, with the time that's left in the regular season, obviously the postseason to come, the potential for Cristian to establish himself as a cornerstone of the offense, even coming into the season at this late point?
The chance is there. The answer is I don't know how big of a chance. We will have to wait and see. I can tell you the chances would be greater if he was here earlier. But the situation is what it is. We also know and knew of very, very few free agents out there at the time where we identified Cristian would be able to impact this group immediately, and he was one of them. And so we feel very comfortable with putting him in and him having an impact. But exactly how much he'll impact it and how fast that process will go, I'm sorry, I do not know.
And just to follow up, John mentioned that in the process of the summer window, players coming out, players coming in, that Cristian checked a lot of boxes in terms of skills thought to be lost from players that were, moved on from the club. Can you just, from your standpoint, from potentially an opposing coach's standpoint,